In working with trans people, we really have to get a grip on um, pronouns. And as you heard at the beginning, my pronouns, which are um, part of a non binary identity as I experience it, are they, them, and theirs. So this can be kind of a scary concept for a lot of folks. Um, but people say, well, my pronouns are such and such, and you kind of hear a mumbling of like, okay, like, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's pretty simple, okay? If a person is identified as a man, he will most likely use he, him, his pronouns. And this is grammatical language, right? We're talking grammar here. So if you can remember that far back to when you learned basic grammar, these are pronouns in grammar, in English grammar, right? So it's not some new concept. We're simply just referring back to basic English and English language skills and saying everybody has a pronoun that gets applied to them. And what we've probably never really deeply thought about is the fact that it's often based on how we look at the person, what we decide is their biological sex, and therefore equates to their gender, right? That's the historical understanding of this. And so we just give them a pronoun based on how we experience them. Well, what trans people are saying is you can't necessarily know who I am until I tell you or until I give you the appropriate way to refer to me. So if you just assume that my pronouns are he, him, his, well, you just made an assumption about what you think is in my pants. And this can be really offensive. And we don't think about it that way because it's just such a normative part of culture. But that's exactly what we're doing. And I imagine that some of you have experienced in your lifetime either being in a situation or having this situation happen to you or witnessing a situation in which someone around you in a public space is misgendered. Somebody gets ma'amed when they should be sirred. And people lose their minds, right? They just, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, and they just they get so embarrassed. And at the end of the day, there's kind of this idea in the trans and queer community of that you can't know the right gender anyway. So the fact that you're even assuming enough, like assuming anything to begin with, is the problem. The problem's not necessarily that you got it wrong. It's that you made any kind of assumption to begin with. Because gender expression does not equate identity. And sex assigned at birth does not equate gender experience, right? So let's just take for a second, and I will use myself as an example. I dress what is stereotypically thought to be masculinely. I shop in the men's department exclusively. My expression is pretty strictly masculine. And when I actually put on feminine clothing, I look like I'm in drag. I look like a man in drag. And I don't look so much like a man in men's clothing all the time. I still get pretty consistently ma'amed or missed. But what is so important here is that assumptions just aren't being made. That would make life so much easier. If someone said to me, hi, what are your pronouns? Before they made any kind of assumption. And if you're at a grocery store or a customer service position where it's not so, you're talking about seconds here, you're just kind of moving someone along and you're often addressing them, before you even, have any kind of a conversation with them. Gender neutral language is really great. Saying they when you haven't asked someone their pronoun would actually, even if you get it kind of wrong, it still sends a message that you're thinking about them and that you are considering the possibilities for the gender. And if you get a chance, ask, right? But there's plenty of gender neutral language out there. that doesn't even require pronouns. And some people get around this by not using pronouns at all. Some people will say, I have no pronouns, or I use no pronouns. And what they're basically saying is just refer to me by my name. And you'll see various, variations of this, depending on what people ask for. What are your pronouns? I hope that this is not the first time you are being asked this question. I hope it's not the first time you're thinking about it, because we all should be thinking about it, and just have a basic sense of how this aspect of the world works, even though it may not be something that we needed to conform to because of our own experience, but it is such an integral part of other people's experience.